Good morning, FAWKES News. It's our long formatted Wednesday show. And some of you are like, what happened to Tuesday? What happened to our Tuesday's quickie newscast, news update? Well, I had a meeting with the president of the Fraternal Order of Police in the North Carolina area. And so I was unable to get a show out for you today. But I will say that all the things that we're potentially going to be working with the FOP might be pretty cool. We'll see. I don't know. It was a good contact. It was a good afternoon to meet the FOP president in the area and just kind of like get that groundwork started. So I apologize. We'll try to make it up to you maybe tomorrow with a news quickie for you. But John and Jason put out a really good news show this week too. So there's tons of content. Of course, we have all of our content. We had a Tansy Time that went out on Patreon, so you can go to Failure to Stop's Patreon, look up Tansy Time if you want some Tansy Time to see where I'm at in my life. So head over there. And then also we've been doing a lot of work with True Crime Santana, which is a new podcast on the network called True Crime Santana. And then we also have the Free Holtzclaw podcast project, where we are for 1 year going in painstaking detail, not so much for entertainment, but to give you all of the facts that show Daniel Holtzclaw is innocent, although he is serving 200 years in prison. If you want to be a part of that project, it's actually probably the first of its kind project, because what we've done is we're giving you every bit of the case. We're giving you all of the information, all of the interviews, all the affidavits. We're giving you first hand witness testimonies. We're giving you all of it, and then explaining it to you in painstaking detail in just little tiny 1 hour increments over the course of a year, so that you can help solve the case as well, so that you can be a part of the case. And of course, it's part of Discord now, and then it's part of and it'll be part of the Patreon. And then if you want to get on our involved on Facebook, whatever, all of this, we're very in it with the fans on this project, so that we can hear all of the perspectives, the what ifs, the theories, so that we can really package this thing together at the end of the year. And this is our push to free Daniel Holtzclaw. Bone Cold says, when do the episodes of Holtzclaw shows get released? Is it every Thursday? Well, because this one is not for monetary value, like we're not monetizing the podcast, the Free Holtzclaw podcast, Bone Cold, and therefore we don't really care about an algorithm for it. What this is about is networking and saying like, hey, we're trying to free Daniel Holtzclaw. If you have questions about the Daniel Holtzclaw case, any part of the case, you can go to the Free Holtzclaw podcast, and literally you can go just part by part of the entire case, from the traffic stop to the initial interview to follow-on interviews to interviews with each of the witnesses, each of the suspects, the civil case, all of the totality of the case. You can go to Free Holtzclaw. So with that, we try to get out every single week. Sometimes we're gonna have 2 episodes in a week, but we had a very long meeting with Michelle Mulkin and Jenny Holtzclaw last week, and there's a lot to digest there, and we have to do this right and correct. So it's not really about putting together a podcast per se to make us look good or to help the network. This is solely about freeing Daniel Holtzclaw. So everything has to be done perfectly and it has to be done right. And at the same time, I'm not in it to free a guy who's guilty. So as we get new information, we look into the information. I'm not trying to prove that he's innocent by any means. What I'm saying is I've done years of research on the Daniel Holtzclaw podcast, and there's no evidence that he's guilty. And all of the evidence points that he's innocent. It's just how that evidence was retarded in front of a jury. And, I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's right. And I think that if he would have been any race or any different religion other than a Christian white male, I think that there would be a whole horde of people that don't want to see this guy spending 200 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. He's literally got 200 years for people who commit the same crime and a lot worse and are found guilty with evidence that aren't getting 200 years for a sentence like this. Matter of fact, one of the worst cases I've ever covered on the Failure to Stop podcast was the Denny Perkins case, and not even they got 200 years in prison. So, this was really kind of proof that this was all political, and that Daniel Holtzclaw was guilty for being a white male Christian police officer. So we are recording tomorrow. We have 2 episodes that we're recording tomorrow for 4 and 6 p.m. and those will get released probably Friday, maybe Saturday. So again, to answer your question, bone cold, it's going to come out every week, but it's not going to be on a certain particular day because it's not like a corporate style podcast. Does that help you out there? Like, this is more of like I said, like a networking type ordeal. So hope that answers that. Make sure you follow True Crime Santana and then the Freeholds Call podcast. Also, quick news on Pig Latin. It's only getting better, folks. The pre-orders for Pig Latin are doing extremely well. And again, I can't talk about it, but everything I've told you I can't talk about that you follow this podcast has come true. Like, remember when I was saying like, oh, I can't talk about it, but then I signed a massive once in a lifetime deal with Simon Schuster and one of the largest publishing houses to publish the book, Simon Schuster. So I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, I'm not like, when I tell you there's something in the works that I can't tell you about, like, it means it's something epic. And all I can say is the last 2 weeks have been absolutely epic. And we have been in talks with something crazy that's happening with the book. And the book hasn't even been released yet. It comes out August 26th, but already somebody wants the rights to the book. And I can't tell you what it's for, but I think you guys can start to put that together. And so I say all that to say that this is going to be a fun, extraordinary journey with Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story. I'm pretty much have wrapped up the promotions for the bookmarks. I will do it today because I'm bringing up the good news. So if you pre-order the book now, you are going to get a custom artist rendition bookmark from artist Jonathan Bates of me allegedly tasing somebody in the vagina from the story. If you pre-order one if you pre-order one on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or Books A Million, you will get the one bookmark. If you pre-order an additional one for a first responder, then I will give you the other remaining 3. And some people have asked, like, well, how do I prove to you that I bought you show me that you pre-ordered the book and you tell me that you did it for a first responder. I mean, I'm not going to like make you prove to me or send me a picture of you doing it. You know what I mean? Like, because some of you are pre-ordering it and you're just going to hand it to a cop when you see one. And it could be months before you see one in a restaurant. You're sitting at the Golden Corral, getting some, you're sitting at the Golden Trough with your family and you see the cops over there trying to get on their grub. And you're just like, yo, hey, anybody want a free book? You know what I mean? So I get it. So all you got to do is just send me a DM or a picture that you bought the book. And then you bought one for a first responder, you're going to get all 4 of those bookmarks. But that deal is going to end very soon because I have hundreds and hundreds of these bookmarks to send out. And it's going to take me, like 48 hours to just sit and handwrite all of these addresses out on all of these envelopes. And then I have to get all the stamps. And then I have to sign all of these bookmarks and send you a little note. So probably going to do that in the next week or 2. I just have to get my head around carving out an entire day, like probably at least an 8-hour day to do this. So if you want to get on that, go ahead and hit us up. All right. Live chats are growing. We've got 11 Mike, Bone Cold, Fleas, Austin, Armory Knights. Who else we got up in here? Murr 530, Deadlay. We appreciate all you guys for being up in the live chats today. Let's go ahead and start with an intro. Before we hit that intro, though, today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com and factormeals.com/Wolfpack 50 off. 50 off. So the new promo code is Wolfpack 50 OFF. Head over to factormeals.com/Wolfpack 50 OFF for 50% off. Take it away, Joshua.
The growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns up, giddy up. Welcome to FAWKES News. It's the last call of the day. Joining me, as always, Deadleg from Deadleg Media. I guess I shouldn't say as always. Sometimes we have Jason. Sometimes we have Josh. Sometimes we have Josh and Jason. But today I have Josh, Deadleg Media. Appreciate you being here. Good. It looks like you're wearing a red-pilled shirt as well. Which one is yours?
I have the famous Bill Clinton.
John Doe 36. There you go. I love it. That's from the Epstein files. I am wearing the lizard suit, people. It says they are everywhere. Just say no to skin suits. Yeah, good. We did not plan that. So it's good to see you there. Today's show, we are covering the the misinformation on COVID that has just been put out. That is actually indeed more misinformation. And this is all coming from the lab leak, but it's not the lab leak that's the misinformation. It's what NPR or propaganda, it should be called PPR, propaganda. People's News. So that's strange. And that's where we're going to start with this COVID lab leak, because it actually ties into the bigger picture and the bigger theme, which is continued on, which is the mainstream media horrifically lying at this point. And if you're not, and this is why this is important, and this is why I think it's important to listen to FAWKES News, is because really, I guess our whole theme here is showing you that the propaganda, I'm not telling you what the answers are, but what I'm showing to you is what the media is telling you the answers are is wrong. And that's important to know. That's half the battle right there, is knowing that what you are being fed by mainstream media, Fox News, CNN, NPR, BBC, it's on its fundamental, like on the very basic level, it is wrong. And yet everybody is still falling for it. When you send me a message 10 minutes after a news story breaks, wanting my immediate reaction, I know that you are one of the people who are suffering from mainstream media addiction. Because if you knew me, if you actually listen to my podcast and you don't just follow me on social media, you would know that all you have to do is give it 48 hours. Give it 72 hours. And the narrative is going to completely change. And so it's not even worth talking about right now, because the media is going to put out a lie. And then all the popular internet sleuths that are paid off by mainstream media are going to put out an additional lie and a spin. And then the independent journalists that are on podcasts and everything are going to put out their theories. And then the evidence is going to start to grow, and then tapes are going to get released, and then we're going to know the truth. And then the truth's not going to put out except by the little independent journalist podcasters like ourselves, and the other mainstream folks and the people who are paid off by mainstream or who are on big major networks are never going to revisit the case. And so you will forever believe, 38% to 40% of what you initially heard, even though that only about 2% of that was actually true. It's a dangerous world that we live in.
The media has never been wrong. They were never wrong about Hunter Biden, the 51 spies who lied. They were never wrong about that. They were never wrong about Russia disinformation.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Julian
Assange. I mean, like the case could go on. And that's what's so funny, is because those were like left-leaning theories back in the day. Like that's what the left rallied around was, well, there's no weapons of mass destruction, and Julian Assange is showing you that we're committing war crimes. And that was the left's rallying cry. And now the left and the big giant conservative right are rallying against that. Where they're saying that, oh, the government's fine. The government is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So all that ties into our next story, which would be the MS-13 story. And again, just the media gets caught in this lie, and they double down on the lie. Then they triple down on the lie. And then all of a sudden they try to revert you to another news story, which is chaos at the Pentagon. And then they're going to lie about that story as well. And now we're caught between two extremely different lies from two different angles, and you have just a completely divided country, which you would think is chaotic, when there's not really any chaos. The chaos is coming from the mainstream media. And so why do I think Fox News, FAWKES News is important? It's because you can take a sigh of relief. You can be like, oh, good, none of this is true. This is all media manipulation. And if I'm not manipulated by the media, if I'm not poisoned by it, then I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to have a better day. That's what I like about what I have been doing over the course of the last 7 months with this FAWKES News, is that it actually gives me peace. It gives me peace in my heart and my soul, because, I feel bad for the people who are living in this fear, who think that Cinco de Mayo is canceled because of ICE threats. Isn't it nice to know that they canceled that Cinco de Mayo in July, and they did it because the previous summer they had 27 shootings at the Cinco de Mayo parade by illegal Mexican gang members? And
how did that happen?
Yeah, and then,
Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. Sorry, not to derail you there, but
no,
how
you're
did that
fine.
happen?
But isn't
They have the strictest gun laws in the world.
it feels good. Like I feel like that's a much better truth than to know that our government isn't sending ICE agents to just kidnap folks. But if you listen to mainstream media, they think they have led you to believe that ICE is going to show up. When we showed you the proof that Cinco de Mayo, they would already canceled it. We showed you that on last week's episode. They were already they canceled it 7 months ago. No, more than that. I'm sorry. In July. So sorry, last July. So 9 months ago.
Almost a year ago.
Almost a year ago, 10 months ago. They had already canceled it because of that previous May Cinco de Mayo, where the 27 people were shot at the Cinco de Mayo parade. Same with Philadelphia. So I think it's better. I think you feel nicer. You feel a little bit of a relief because of all this. Jill Billy's in the chat today, and she's feeling lonely because her husband was just on the Drinking Bros podcast, where I hear he gave me a shout out. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the last Drinking Bros episode. Jason Kiefer gave me a shout out, allegedly. That's what I've heard through the grapevine. So we'll go back and we'll listen to that. Armory Knight says Tansy treats a news story like a night of sex. He knows he can rough it up and pound it out, but he wants to tease it for a while. I do. This is our long formatted show. So I will give you guys probably a shorter version tomorrow of something else. So C. Beerworth says the mainstream media is like watching a train wreck. Now, if you're watching mainstream media with that mentality, then it is very entertaining. But unfortunately, people are listening to this and then they fall for it over and over again. It's the same people over and over again that slide into my DMs and say, Eric, what do you think about this? And it's like, no, how long have you been sending me this message? How many times do I have to tell you that I'm not going to play this game? That just wait for my show to come out. I will talk about it when there is information to talk about it. Because that's what you should be.
Because why is it important? It's why would it be important? Because the news would put out information and then everybody has to just jump step and get in line. Like, oh, we're going to put a mask on. Okay, why? If you ask why, you get put in the corner. You're not supposed to ask why. You just do it. When they say, hey, we're going to do this 6 feet thing and you need to stay apart from people from 6 feet and we're going to do this 6 feet. You ask, why 6 feet? And they go, well, we're just going to do that. We're going to do a lockstep for 6 feet. And we're going to shut your business down. Well, why? You start asking questions like why, and people don't have answers. This is why the media wants to control. It's all about control. And then you start asking questions and we have spent the last couple of years just every time. It's been fun just to be able to go through the last 7 days of media and go, okay, what did they report on? And then 48 hours later, what was it actually happening? Or they'll jump on a story and then it'll disappear because it doesn't fit a narrative or they can't spin it to fit a narrative.
Now, I think it's very important to note that what we have said and what we have speculated on FAWKS and Alan Failure to Stop when we were doing the news over there, all the things that we speculated about COVID, we were actually correct. We weren't trying to be right, though. Like I wasn't, and this is all coming from this lab leak, guys. For those of you who don't know, whitehouse.gov released a giant, they released the whole investigation on the origins of COVID-19. Now, this is at whitehouse.gov/lab leak, true origins of COVID-19. Now, here's the funny thing. And again, I use the left, not because I think that I'm on the right. I'm not. I'm part of a independent party that I take very seriously. So some people say, well, I'm independent, but they say it because they're cowards, right? A lot of people use the I'm independent because they're either uneducated or they're too cowardly. They don't want to lose friends. Because, and by the way, a true friend doesn't abandon you on your beliefs. Like I have friends who are Muslims. I have friends who are Black. I have friends who are Jewish. I have friends who are liberals and libertarians and conservatives, Baptists, Catholics. My friendship doesn't revolve around your belief systems or the race of your skin whatsoever. So when I say I'm independent, what I mean is that I'm almost like an anti-government party, where it's like I am this like third party where I am going to educate myself, and whoever is wrong, I'm going to expose where they're wrong and what I don't like about them. And I've been very open about that with any conversation. So, when people say like, hey, what do you think about Elon Musk? And I'm like, I mean, I think he's a very shady character. I covered it, the little threesomes that he was having. I've covered the fact that he's not a great father. Like when he was brought up in the Johnny Depp thing, like I think all these guys are in cahoots with each other. All these guys have had very dark times in their lives. I don't know which ones have learned from it or are still in that dark period of time, but I'll tell you that he has an agenda, that Elon Musk has an agenda. I don't know what his agenda is, but I don't think I do think it's probably nefarious. I do think that he is trying to line his pockets in a certain way. But it goes against the big government's pockets lining, which is also bad. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is educate and know what I'm getting myself into. And that is why I consider myself independent. But I'm independent. I have the knowledge of why I'm independent. And I'm also not afraid to say I agree with Donald Trump. I'm not afraid of losing friends. A lot of people in the independent field either are independent because they don't want to lose friends, so they're kind of cowardly, or two, they're just uneducated and they're like, I don't really know enough, so I'm just going to say I'm independent. That way I don't lock myself in and I don't get embarrassed. I don't embarrass myself. I'm not like that. I like to consider myself that I dive into the news. I go for left-leaning news, real hard left-leaning news. I go to Breaking Points and I listen to Crystal and Sagar, and I suffer listening to Crystal's voice every single morning as I have to, she gets so passionate about things that I just think are so ridiculous. But I appreciate her and I appreciate the work and the effort that she does. And then I go over to somebody on the far opposite spectrum of Crystal and I'll listen to Tim Pool. And I'll see, and I'll have to suffer through Tim Pool knowing everything. He knows all things. And how dare you argue with Tim Pool? Sometimes, that gets a little bit annoying, but I appreciate Tim Pool's research. His passion for the job, his journey to find the truth, and his journalism. Again, that's what journalism is, right? We're not always going to like everything about every person, but he comes by the facts honestly. And I don't always agree with his opinions of the facts, just like I don't agree with Crystal's opinions of the facts. Then I go to the Daily Brief, the President's Daily Brief. I listen to that every morning. The monotone, 15 to 20 minute presidential daily brief. China's raising taxes. And right now, China is their rare, unique resource to learn like what's going on a global scale. And then I might venture off and listen to other goofy podcasts or something. Like maybe I'll listen to the TMZ and see what's going on in Hollywood. If there's some Hollywood stuff going on, maybe I'll listen to Culture Crisis, or maybe I'll listen to, Drinking Bros Fake News. And there's tons of places that I go to get the totality of the news, right? So I try to keep myself very, very informed and loosely educated, I would say, on the topics. So with that, we have this lab leak, the true origins of COVID-19, but guess where they sourced all of the information to create the lab leak true origins of COVID-19 page at whitehouse.gov. Josh, anybody in the chat, where do you think they pulled this information from?
Well, if I wanted you to start, I wouldn't say believing or get behind a narrative of facts and start to formulate your own opinions, I'd give you receipts. And the receipts that we're going through are from the December 4th publication of the Select Subcommittee on Coronavirus Pandemic. What happened? It's 557 pages, and that's what the website is referencing. They're referencing this
What
report.
Administration was that report conducted under?
Yeah, because December 4th, Joe Biden was still the president. That was under the Biden administration.
540-page report went the course of how many years?
During the course, they started it, I believe, in 2021 or 2022. I'll look back to get the exact date.
So
this was dealing with this for a while.
This was a report that was conducted. This was an investigation by subcommittees, elect subcommittees, done underneath the Biden administration, when everybody was convinced that Donald Trump would never be president again, when all of the cards were stacked against Donald Trump from ever being the president. This investigation was taking place to find the truth. When it was released on December 4th, what did the media do with the report?
Ignored it.
They ignored the report. They did nothing with the report, right? Even though guys like yourself and guys like me read the report, tried to put out on social media what the report was, and no, it went crickets. Nobody cared. So now Donald Trump puts out the information again. If you're not paying attention, the information that was given to you by the Biden administration's that was a report done under the Biden administration. I guarantee you Biden had nothing to do with it. If he did, it would read completely different. So this was a very unique, very not bipartisan investigation, a very objective investigation on the true origins of COVID-19, and the finding were not popular with the Biden administration. So what does the Biden administration do? What does the media do for the Biden administration anytime something comes out that is going to hurt or harm the Biden administration? What do they do when they find a laptop that's real? Yes, they censor it. What happens when Project Veritas comes across a diary that talks about illicit and inappropriate showers with Joe Biden and Ashley Biden? What does they do? They censor it. What does social media platforms do when you start you talking about these things? They censor you. They censor you. They censor you. And so they censored this. And so now that Donald Trump puts out at whitehouse.gov the findings that were found underneath the Biden administration that Trump had nothing to do with, what does NPR say about it? Well, let's pull it up. Let's show the headlines on what they have to say about it.
They're calling it a lab leak is a flashy page on the virus origin replaces the government COVID sites.
Okay, what does the next one say?
CNN says that this White House touts COVID lab leak theory on new website.
Oh,
so
okay. Do we have any more?
It's the actual website itself. All of them. It goes on and on, because what happens is especially the NPR. This is the headline that will come up over and over and over and over. Because what happens when we're recording these is we start to do, or when we're presenting these, when we start doing research, we'll do the research and we'll start to look for the articles, and you'll have 9,000 articles. Like the first 5 or 6 pages will be nothing but the same thing regurgitated over and over and over and over again. It's the same thing, literally copy and paste word for word. And it's from this reporter in Vermont Times, and then it's reported on all over the places. But when it's under the Biden administration, we're just going to not say anything. Like,
right.
What are some of the things? Like the 6 feet rule was just literally completely made up out of thin air.
Right. So the origins of COVID-19, the investigation, the 500 whatever page investigation, really has some like bombshell conclusions to the investigation. And again, these are proven. They're not theories. There's no theory here. It's they've proven that the virus possessed a biological characteristic that is not found in nature. That is a fact. Number 2, that the data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. 3, Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research, gene-altering organisms, superchanging, and inadequate biosafety levels. Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with COVID-like symptoms in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19. And that's when we heard that, Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone were actually flying back and forth to Wuhan working on this COVID breakout. And I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Malone that was the first person to actually contract, the first American to get COVID, and he had the symptoms on his way back from Wuhan when he was there on the ground. Now, he's been on the ground for every major pandemic. Fauci wasn't there. It was Malone and McCullough that were the 1 and 2 that have been the leaders in outbreaks since they started with AIDS and went on through all the other Ebola outbreaks and lots of outbreaks all over the world. So these are the 2 leading guys. Remember, those are the ones that went on Joe Rogan and were kicked out of the CDC and ostracized and defamed and made fun of by mainstream media for speaking their truth. And again, it was like, trust the science, right? Well, here's like the lead number 1 and number 2 of the CDC's pandemic outbreak. And they were saying all the things that we're seeing in this whitehouse.gov lab leak. And we were saying that, no, you're science deniers. And so if you go to the whitehouse.gov, they'll show you exactly how this the seafood market, and they'll show you the map on how it got there. But I think what was interesting about this whole lab leak was it goes into the proximal origin publication, which is like trying to talk to you about how it did not originate in nature and how it had to be originated into a lab. And so if you're really nerdy, if you really want to dive into it, you can see all of the evidence that proves that this was not a natural occurring pandemic, that it did come from human intervention or interaction. You can read all about the gain of function research in there. Again, we did all this back in December. And then we have the Anthony Fauci pardon, which kind of proves all of this. And the one big major takeaway from this was the last little chapter, the last little paragraph before you can get into the report, where it says public health officials often misled the American people through conflicting messaging, knee-jerk reactions, and a lack of transparency. Most egregiously, and this is the most important part of the whole takeaway, this is what should make every American angry and what is going to set the tone for the rest of today's show. Most egregiously, the federal government demonized alternative treatments and disfavored narratives, such as the lab leak theory and a shameful effort to coerce and control the American people's health decisions. It was proven, folks, that ivermectin saved lives, that monoclonal antibodies saved lives, and people were refused care. People were not given. I had a friend die, a very close friend of mine that managed my websites, that ran my websites, that spent his days trying to convince me to go back to church and to seek God. And we would have these wonderful lunches. And one of the most spiritual men, family men, he was a father that he homeschooled his family. His kids are older than mine. So I was raising my kids at an early age. And so his name was Jamal Porter. And Jamal was the guy that I wanted to be a father like Jamal, because he had the most respectful. And I told him, I said, one day we were having coffee and we were having a very serious meeting. And this is when I owned my distillery and he was in charge of marketing and stuff. And so he brought his kids to the meeting and I was shocked. I was like, man, it's like, why would you bring your kids to my meeting? And his kids were so quiet and polite, and they were yes sir, no sir. They sat at their own table. They didn't have any screens. They were doing their math studies or whatever homeschool studies, and I was so taken back by how polite and kind they were that it really kind of took over the meeting. I was like, man, I wanted to learn, how did you do this? And it really encouraged me to raise my kids. He died. He and I went to lunch at Smithfield's 3 or 4 days later. He was in the hospital. His wife, he was extremely conservative. At our lunch, he had said if he ever got COVID, that he wanted ivermectin, he wanted monoclonal antibodies. His wife tried to get it for him. They threatened to remove him from the VA. He was denied that care, and he died on a ventilator. Even after his wife, because his wife and I talked a lot, is that even when they told his wife that there's nothing else they could do, she said, can we give him the ivermectin and the monoclonal antibodies? And they said no. They wouldn't even try it as a last ditch effort. And so here we have the media who told you that it was a dewormer. We know, we heard all the Chris Cuomo's and all the people that were out there making fun of, and all the who were the other comedians that were,
Colbert had a thing about it. Everybody did.
All of these media talking heads trying to convince you that ivermectin was a horse dewormer. Most egregiously, the federal government demonized alternative treatments, and they killed people, guys. So that's why FAWK's news is important, guys, because when you start to listen to the media, if the media is willing to go, and the reason why they lied was because they were trying to thwart, it was all political. It was all political. They killed people over politics. So when you see this whole story about Abrego Garcia and the MS-13, what they are doing is, again, lying to you, trying to create chaos and fear. And again, it's hurting people and it's harming people. Before we get into this next story, which if now I've proved to you that the media is so dangerous, they can kill you, that people listening to mainstream media will literally kill you. It will have you killed by not giving you medical care that they've convinced you not to trust the science. All right. Today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com. Right now, GhostBed, again, I told you they were switching things up. This is probably our last month with GhostBed, even after being with them for years and years and years. They're completely redoing all of their marketing, going in. I don't know what direction they're going. I hope that we get to continue on with them. I don't know, though. But I did just see this week that they have brought on a new bed, which I think is really cool. Right now, the promo code is Wolfpack. That promo is going to go away next month, so it's gone. Like I'm like 90% sure that this is the last time that you can get the 40 to 50% off site-wide deal on GhostBed. So I will always say invest in your mental health and mental wellness. Do it now while you can get 40 to 50% off. Beds made in the good old USA, but right now they have the GhostBed Signature Hybrid. What else is what's the new one they have?
The GhostBed Comfort Form and the GhostBed Lux Hybrid are the new 3.
Ooh. And so like they had the healing technology one, which is my favorite, which has the copper interlays so that it helps for like muscle recovery and things like that. And that was the one that they linked up with Serena Williams, I believe it was, or Venus, one of those sisters.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite beds. I've laid on all of these beds, by the way. They're also, I love all the pillows. The GhostBed pillows are on sale on the site. The massage topper, again, doing BJJ and doing all the things. I live on my massage topper. That's how I kind of recoup. But this GhostBed pillow, it's like a lifelong pillow, man. And it's got the cooling technology. It's got the inner mesh covering. It's just like a multi-layered. The fucking thing weighs like 5 pounds. It's the heaviest pillow on planet Earth, but it is the most comfortable pillow. All my family sleeps on GhostBed pillows. We travel with the GhostBed pillows. Head over to ghostbed.com right now and get those savings at ghostbed.com. They're blowing up. I actually saw GhostBeds in Costco. So I think that they've finally, like, they've been this small brand, beds made in the good old USA. And I think that they're probably going to be more of a mainstream brand coming very soon. I think they've made it, quote unquote. So we'll see. But I will always forever love GhostBed, even if they're not a sponsor of this show. I will forever love. Armory Knight's next promo is 80% off. It's not. I promise you that. I would not lead you astray. I would never try to trick my loyal core fans. I wouldn't do that. Honest to God, I wouldn't do that.
You would do what CNN does to people?
No, I don't do that. And listen, I wouldn't be with GhostBed for so many years if I just wasn't just absolutely in love with the product. And then also because we're all into mental wellness and mental health, having a good dietary. And by the way, guys, like I've turned down so many ads. Like I don't do nicotine ads. I don't do neurotropics. I don't do, and I don't do any pharmaceutical ads. I don't do any of that stuff. So I go after ads that I know will help you better your life. And stuff that I personally choose for my own family members. So factormeals.com /Wolfpack50 off OFF right now. Make this your best season yet. Nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor meals arrives fresh and ready to eat. Perfect for any active lifestyle. That's my favorite thing about Factor meals. I don't have to go to the grocery store with my 5 kids. I don't have to cut away time to figure out, am I watching my 5 kids while my wife goes to the grocery? Is it vice versa? Are we taking the kids with us and they're going to put a bunch of crap in the grocery cart that we don't need? Time is money. Money is time. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals to fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfast, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, guilt-free snacks, and desserts. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. These things are absolutely delicious. The shakes are my favorite. Get started at factormeals.com /Wolfpack50 off. Use code Wolfpack50 OFF to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Wolfpack50 off at factormeals.com. Wolfpack50 off. Get your Factor meals today. All right. We just talked about the lies from the COVID project. And again, if you're an independent journalist, if you're an independent journalism lover, and that's another thing too, is that college students right now, it's a big theme, is that they're trying to defend journalists. The journalists are the victims here. They're not. But what the journalists that I see today are me, the soldier in 2005, where I bought into weapons of mass destruction. And so I passionately defended George Bush to a fault. I did that. I was young, dumb, and naive, and I was idealistic. That's the problem, Josh, is that we are younger adults are idealistic. You have these ideologies, you have this grandiose vision of what things should be, and when it doesn't fit into that, you are very passionate and you're offended by that. And so there's this big push to kind of like, it's not journalism fault and they're just trying to do their job and it's important, but they are being manipulated. They're being manipulated. It's like when a child is disgustingly bad and you try to tell me all these redeeming qualities of the child and then, he comes from a bad background. At the end of the day, at some point, you have to take responsibility for yourself. I understand that they had bad parents. I understand that the public school system failed them. Well, no, and this public school system didn't fail them, Eric. No. Well, his parents, that's his parents' responsibility. It's like they don't want, it's like, oh, okay, so it's just the parents' responsibility. At the end of the day, you have to take responsibility and we all have to take responsibility. I saw an Instagram reel that kind of hit home for me. It was like, because you were born with a lot more testosterone in your body, it doesn't give you the right to beat your wife. Oh, well, God made me this way. So it's God's fault. I was born with more testosterone. I was born hyper. I was born more angry, or, it's my TBI that makes me snap and it's not my fault. No, at the end of the day, you have free will. And you have the opportunity to harness your bad behaviors. Like, imagine if I just allowed all of my impulses to be unchecked. It would be a pretty wild person, to be honest with you. So, coming on with this MS-13 story, here's what I would like to propose to you, Josh, and to all of our listeners here. This is what I want to propose to you. On that journalism front, right? We want to back up journalism. Here's my proof that you're manipulated. Every journalism that has this debate, every single one of them, every single journalist that will debate you that they are not manipulated, every single one of them, ask them who is in the right, Jordan Neely or Daniel Penny? Who is in the right, George Floyd? Who is in the right? Michael Brown, Breonna Taylor, Sergeant Mattingly case. Who was in the right for the Ahmaud Arbery case? Who was the victim in the Lincoln Riley case? Let's talk about the case of Carmelo Anthony. How come every single major media news covered story, these journalists side with and try to convince you and start the argument and showcase guys like who is it that we always talk about on here that's always defending these people? Sorry,
Big Crump.
Yeah, Crump. Why is it that you put and you showcase those sides of the story, and those are the sides that you take? And how come is it? And look, from an outside perspective, if you're not manipulated, what gives? Why is it every single one of these people? Abrego Garcia, why are your hearts bleeding for those people and not any in all of these cases? The victim, quote unquote, the suspect, quote unquote, that you're defending has a history of violence and a history of crime. And the guys that you go against have a history of doing the right thing. They're the volunteers. They're the ones that aren't beating their wives. They're the ones that live a life that have a noble profession. They've graduated college. They've done all the things that they were supposed to do. They didn't smoke the marijuanas. They did all that. And they may or may not have messed up one time. And you completely bury them while trying to lift up the guy who's made a life of being a terrible human being. George Floyd, Michael Brown, Abrego Garcia. Why is it that you journalists have to defend to no end, knowing that you're not going to win with Abrego Garcia? Why is it that when we talk about Abrego Garcia's tattoos, which is 100% an MS-113 gang member, how come you put out huge hit pieces like PolitiFact has to say, and all the other, and you guys regurgitate what PolitiFact says about Abrego Garcia's, and you try to justify that the marijuana leaf doesn't start with an M. It's just most people, lots of people around there. A survey says that such and such percent of people have a marijuana leaf tattoo on them. That doesn't mean MS-13. And a smiley face, there's another percentage of people who have smiley face tattoos. So having an M on one knuckle and a smiley face doesn't mean M and S. and then the number 1, and then, all these representations that literally equal MS-13, even though that we have the DHS going years and years back have targeted this guy as an MS-13 gang member, that the FBI has him sourced as Maria Salvatrucha, which is an MS-13 gang, that he was involved in 2019 in domestic violence, where his wife talks about him being an MS-13. And then we go even further back that he can't go back to El Salvador because he's a wanted gang member in El Salvador, and they have hits out on him because he is a gang member in El Salvador. And then we also have that he was involved in human trafficking from Texas all the way up, and all of the evidence and all the narrative from a lonely street cop who has no goals in life. He doesn't want to make up some kind of human trafficking story. How come all of these things combined along with the tattoos, and you're still saying, and you're still trying to convince the public that this guy is not an MS-113 gang member? You don't want to talk about any of this stuff, and you wanted to defend this guy. Why do you care so much about Abrego Garcia, but you did not care about Jocelyn Nungere, who was raped and murdered and first-degree murder by illegal immigrants, or Lincoln Riley, who was murdered by a illegal immigrant? How come you wanted to? You wouldn't want to cover Andrel Alvarado case in California, where he talks about driving by and innocently shooting. They went on these what do they call them, hunting trips, where they hunted human beings, and they bragged about it. Let's see, it was this is from Law and Crime. Murder squad gang member admits he killed innocent bystanders for sport. This is of April 16th, and he went on human hunts for victims. Now, every single one of these guys are gang members. From Hispanic gang members. Another member of the so-called murder squad in California, who allegedly killed for sport, going on hunts for people they suspected of being rival gang members while also slaughtering innocent bystanders in the process, has pleaded guilty to being part of the bloodshed. Andrew Alvarado, 34, entered his guilty plea Tuesday in federal court and was scheduled to be sentenced in July for his participation in murder squad mayhem, which included 11 murders. 3 Alvarado was directly involved in, according to local NBC affiliate. He helped orchestrate multiple shootings, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. He and his murder squad co-defendants have also been linked to countless other crimes, including robbery, drug trafficking, and selling of illegal drugs. Now, innocent people and bystanders were caused, but we do not speak out against this. You can't find this story in mainstream media anywhere. You have to find it on some obscure news source like Law and Crime News. When at the end of the day, this is like having that information that there are murder squads going around California is pretty fucking pertinent information. It's like when I was involved in the book Pig Latin in a gang shooting where a 13-year-old had his head completely removed by an AK-47, and the news reported it as random gun violence, random acts of violence, but they didn't want to talk about the known gang war that we let the media know there was a gang war. How beneficial would it be to know that if the whole world knew that there was a gang member, that the Crips, H.J. Crips on Cross and Fisher Street were at war with the other Bloods on Martin Street, and that this is going on? Do you don't think parents would be like, maybe a hint that says like, hey, there's a gang war going on Cross Street and on Martin Street. Maybe we don't take those cross streets to get through to Pool Road when the light's not green, so that I'm not an innocent bystander. Or maybe it's like, wow, maybe we need to do some mission trips down there. Maybe we need to do, maybe we need to alert the public, and the public needs to know about this so that we can fix the problem. But no, we don't report on it. We report on it as gun violence to make you, the civilian, think that we have a problem with gun control in this country, which doesn't save any lives, by the way, because at the end of the day, the media doesn't care about saving lives. They don't care about fixing Cross Street and Martin Street. What they care about is keeping you in fear, and they focus on chaos. And if I wasn't wrong, ask any single journalist whose side they're on. And if we look at all the facts that are now coming out about Carmelo Anthony, we have big giant leaders in the Black community who are saying, I apologize for even getting involved in this weeks ago. Like, all of the evidence is coming out that this the kid that he stabbed in the chest, which it's sad that I don't even know his name, but I know the suspect's name. How sad is that? Like, I feel like a piece of shit journalist right now, because I'm so focused on the bad guy that we don't even know the good guy's name. This is a good kid. You guys wanted Carmelo Anthony. Why did you want him to be a good person? Why didn't you want him to? Because you are brainwashed. You have been manipulated. You want to be right instead of just letting the evidence show you what's right and what's wrong. You want to be right. You want your feelings to be right. You want your narrative to be the right fair. Wouldn't it be easier as a journalist to just not have a narrative, to just not care? And sometimes when I look at a story about Donald Trump and I want Donald Trump to be right in this, and then I catch myself trying to find, oh, well, they have to be wrong. They have to be wrong. Instead, I say, wait, no. I don't care about Donald Trump. I don't give a fuck. I always know that Donald Trump wasn't a great person. He's not the savior. He's no savior complex. He didn't get that far in life by being a good person. Why am I trying to defend Donald Trump? Let me go and see what this story really has to offer, and let me see the meat and potatoes so that I have a proper perspective on who the president is, so that I can have debates and I can vote accordingly. Isn't that more important, Josh?
Because normally you want to collect as much information as possible to make the best decision based on all the information that you have. And if the media is just putting out a narrative, they're looking for things to fit a narrative. They're looking for cases to fit a narrative. We have this narrative that there's this massive gun violence. There's a case now. Oh, look, there's this case. It fits it. Oh, no, well, he didn't use a gun. He used a knife. Oh, well, it's race thing. There's a race thing. There's a race. They have to find a narrative. NPR is trying to sell you something. And the answer to your question is, why do you have to find the narrative? Because this segment's brought to you by that's who paid for the bill. So whoever's paying the bill is going to tell you, hey, you guys are leaning hard into this pharmacy stuff. Maybe you should look into something else. Maybe you should be looking into this human trafficking, or maybe you look into something else, because this pharmacy stuff, it's kind of us. And if it hurts our bottom line, I don't want to be paying you anymore. And if I'm going to have to worry about my sponsorship, then I'm not going to report on this. The thing is we have the ability to report on kind of literally whatever we want. No one has ever told us, don't report on this. The only times we ever been told anything about don't report is, don't use my name as a source. You didn't get this from me. You can't.
Oh, and how many stories? How many great stories have we had where I wasn't comfortable putting it out because the anonymous source, like I don't want to put out media or stuff like when there's an anonymous source and it's still going to leave you with more questions and answers. I would just say, like, let's just not bring it up. Like, I mean, it's great that I know and I can direct you in the truth, but I don't need to say what this source said, because at the end of the day, he's anonymous and there's no way for them to. Why should you take my word for it? I haven't proven myself to you guys, so we don't put it out. We don't put it out.
But why does PolitiFact, like, literally, who's sitting in their office going, hey, we need to put out an article explaining why
very
these
long article that's a complete lie
that are not MS-13 tattoos. Let's not. Hey, if I don't think these are MS-13 tattoos, let me put these tattoos out. Let me present my argument. These are all the other tattoos that are very similar to this that have nothing to do with MS-13. And then these are all these tattoos that we found out that are affiliated with MS-13. And then now I'm going to present this information to you. Then you as the reader, you as the audience, you get to formulate your opinions on the facts presented. But if I'm only presenting facts from one side, I'm holding facts back from other side, or I'm just blatantly straight up lying to you, I'm not reporting on anything. I'm trying to sell you something. I'm trying to sell you that this isn't thing. Why am I trying to sell you that's not thing? Because we don't want accountability. What do we don't accountability for? Oh, the last 4 years we've had open borders and we've been screaming, hey, this is a bad thing. We need to have an immigration policy. We need to actually follow this thing. Why is this a problem? Oh, because people are dying. Oh no, now I have to be accountable for this. I was elected to these positions and we did these things. Now I have dead bodies. It's this all over again. Do you want it to be the illegal immigrants that are killing you? Do you want it to be the government putting, all these sick people in nursing homes and killing your grandparents, and then telling you can't go to their funerals? And if you do, you have to wear a mask and stand 6 feet apart from each other. This is ridiculous.
If you still don't believe me, even though we know all the evidence that shows that this guy's an MS-13 gang member, it's not like in 2019 a state trooper made this up. It's not like the FBI made up that this guy was an MS-13. People, believe it or not, like, we don't want, like, it's not like they foreshadowed that Donald Trump was going to send this guy back and the media was going to do it. But now all of that, this has come out because the media, again, they put this stuff out there because they know that then they're going to put it out, and then the people that they pay that are minor league are going to put out the same thing, but just a little bit different. And then by the time somebody like me puts it out, it's going to be already over and forgotten with, and they've already moved on to the next thing, which we're going to talk about, which is this Pete Hegseth and kind of chaos at the Pentagon that's going on, because that's the new thing. That's the new craze. But if you don't believe me that journalists are not bought in and manipulated and sought out, why is it that they care so much and that they are putting so much emphasis on sending a representative from Congress, Democrat Congress people from Florida, California, Arizona, and Oregon to El Salvador, and they are saying we will not come back, and that they're trying to tell you that it's that the Supreme Court didn't rule in the favor of Donald Trump, that the Supreme Court didn't rule in the favor, that the Constitution doesn't specifically say that we don't have to keep this guy here or that we have to bring him anywhere. And yet the media is still telling you, and these Congress people are still telling you, okay, so when did they not care? When, like, where were the Congress people, these same Congress people that thought that they need to go on Abrego Garcia's behalf, this MS-113, this domestic violence, this trafficker, this guy who's been on the FBI watch list, who illegally came here in 2011 when he was 16-year-old and committed several crimes since he's been here. Why do they care so much about him that they're willing to go there and sit by his side in protest for him to come back? But you're not going to go sit in protest at that Marine that is being held as a spy in Russia. Why aren't you sitting in there and saying, we're not leaving until you bring our guy back? Why are you not trying to free your own journalist who has spent, the last 20 years in confinement to get him to get him out of France and wherever else? Obviously, I'm talking about Julian Assange here, but you don't. You choose this nasty bad guy who has no redeeming qualities, and that's the guy you're going to go oversee. You're not going to go sit with the missionaries in Haiti that were under the rule of gang members that were being held hostage by gang members. You're going to say, we're not leaving the Dominican Republic until you release our Christian missionaries who've done nothing wrong. But you Congress folks choose to go to Mexico and defend this. What is in it for you? What is in it for you? And why, if you are a journalist that isn't manipulated, that you're not a journalist, is not caught up in your feels, why are you defending these people? And again, that's why I always say, if you ever, and I have this debate with independent journalists all the time, but they think I'm a journalist hater and that without journalists is good. And I just ask them very, very simply, what is your opinion on Jordan Neely and Daniel Penny? And they're like, was that the thing in was that the thing in the subway? And I go, oh, before you say that, let me go back to your social media, your Facebook, and let's go and see all the articles that you shared about Jordan Neely and defending you defending Jordan Neely against Daniel Penny. Like, you know what I mean? It's not journalism. They're doing everything because they're caught up in their feels in the moment. Speaking of Pete Hegseth and things going on at the Pentagon, obviously, and I'll say this one, I saved this one for the end because at the end of the day, this is something I want to watch out. Now, this is coming from Yahoo News, from Politico. A Pentagon advisor who was abruptly fired with several other Defense Department officials amid a leak investigation is disputing the stated reason for his dismissal, arguing he was purged over his foreign policy views, including opposition to an attack on Iran. Dan Caldwell said in a podcast interview Monday that he was not responsible for leaks that were used as a justification for a purge that has caused turmoil at the Pentagon and prompted to cause the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to resign. So basically what we have here is that there was this guy who's very outspoken about the war, that Israel's war with Iran, and direct conflicts of Iran. Also, the same time, notoriously, this Pope disappears and he dies. All this is all going on at the same time. And I think what's going on right now, and I think it's pretty clear to a lot of other people, if you're into independent media, that what we have here is, again, yes, Loren says evil protects evil. I think what you're going to see is that this is all playing out, that we're going to have a war, Israel and Iran, that we have a major war brewing, and anybody who's against that war, and anybody stepping up against Israel or trying to talk about the genocide is going to be silenced the same way Julian Assange was in the Bush administration. Again, let's be fair. That's what's going to happen here, because the big government machine, and I talked about this on Facebook when Joe Biden got into office 5 years ago, I said big government is back, and big government has to have big war. And there is a war right now with the Trump machine and the government machine. And it's whose side are you going to be on in that particular case? Are you anti-war, or are you pro-government, pro-big war? And I think that anybody who's trying to fight the government right now is in a battle. It's a separate battle. We have a lot of little battles going on. And this is one of those battles where the Trump administration is trying to fight big pharma. And they're also trying to fight big government, who's trying to extend big war. So it's where all the money is at, is what the Trump administration. And so they are really right now treading on thin ice right here, and you can see it playing out. And like I said, I'm not going to say anything audacious or hyperbolic at the moment, but I say that this is something to pay attention to, because I think 5-6 months from now, we're going to be able to tie in the Pope's death. We're going to be able to tie in the firing of these 3 individuals. We're going to see more people who were pro-Israel or anti. We're going to see an inner conflict of people being deceased that just happened to line up in certain roles on either side of the fence. And it's this underground weird war that's going on. And unfortunately, when there's a war going on, people are going to die on both sides. And so I would say give this 5 months, and then you're going to hear me talk about it. But we'll mark down that today on April 23rd, Eric had a Chanstradamus prediction that the news media that you're hearing this week, 5 months from now, we're going to be able to put those pieces together again. And we're going to be able to go, oh, remember this when you guys were saying that you were conspiracy theorists and that there's not any kind of inner workings with the Pope. There's not any inner workings with Israel, that this is just like, the big government doesn't really want to go to war with Iran. That would be foolish. You guys are being hyperbolic. You guys are conspiracy theorists. 5 months from now, when things have escalated and things are where they're at, let's go back and let's talk about this week and what's going on 5-6 months from now. Does that sound fair, Josh?
Sounds very fair.
By the way, we have Greg LaMontagne from the Bars Open with Beth and Greg in the chats today. If you want fun and flirty news, which is a little bit more chill and relaxed, and it's kind of like you can just enjoy what's going on in the news. The Bars Open with Beth and Greg is just a very fun, flirty take on today's TMZ style kind of fun, flirty news that's out there. And of course, they are such a organically fun couple to rally around. Greg and Beth are they're a longtime married couple who are just besties, and it shows, and it's refreshing, and it's fun to see people out there who are podcasting that just love the podcast, and they love each other, and it's their hobby, and they have fun, and they want to make the world a better place through Discord and conversation. And so I encourage you to go over to the Bar is Open with Beth and Greg, YouTube and on podcast. Of course, they're on Facebook, Instagram, and all the things. Brought to you by Pfizer, is what Greg LaMontagne says. Just kidding, by the way. Just kidding. Guys, maybe you didn't know about the COVID live leak at the whitehouse.gov COVID live leak. Maybe you didn't know about Abrego Garcia actually being an MS-113 gang member, and that there's really no question. It's not even up for debate. And the fact that so-called independent journalists are trying to debate it, it just shows you how far independent journalists have swung, how far the pendulum has swung, where they are just consumed by pro big government, big corporation, and they were bought in hook, line, and sinker. And then maybe you didn't know about Pete Hegseth, and maybe you didn't know about the Pentagon and the big firings going on there. So as G.I. Joe says, now you do know, and knowing is half the battle. We will see you guys probably tomorrow. We have a big podcast day tomorrow. I'm going to try to do a little news quickie tomorrow. And then, of course, we have the free Holtz Club podcast that we're shooting tomorrow, and then another True Crime Santana. So lots going on. Share this with a friend. Share this with friends. We need to grow this show, and that can only be by you sharing us with somebody. So tell a friend to follow FAWKES News, post about us on your social media, screenshot this and put it up on your picture and link it straight to Apple Music or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating and review so we can continue this through the summer. Guys, I'll tell you right now, here's like a little foreshadowing. Big changes are coming to FAWKS and Failure Stop this summer. Or I should say the fall is going to be insane changes, but we will be majorly financially backed probably come this fall. There's just so many things that are crazy in the works, and we're not going to let, just because I have some big things coming up doesn't mean the Failure Stop podcast is going away any way, shape, or form. Matter of fact, that has been the big question for the whole team. It's like, hey, are we dropping the show when it comes August timeframe, and all these things that I can't tell you about now come to fruition? And my answer to that was no. And they were like, well, why? Why even keep that headache? And the reason why is because this is where we started. This is where our true fan group is from. And we're always going to be a minor league podcast at heart. And this is what's going to keep us humble. But you know what? We're going to be able to do a lot more, and we're going to be able to give a lot more back, because we're actually going to be extremely financially backed at that time, and we're going to be able to have even more fun. And then that's what we're going to do. So the show will go on, whether I'm in charge of the show, I'm running the show, all the time. The show will go on. So let's just enjoy the next 90 days of chillax. Let's enjoy what we have right now, and whatever the Lord gives us or takes from us, it's okay, because we know that there is a higher calling, and that there is there's more to the story. We just have to keep turning the pages. So until tomorrow, we'll see you guys. Take us out of here, Josh.
See ya.